Welcome, everyone, to People on Dating. I'm your host, Will Morales. And for those of you who are tuning in for the first time, this podcast is about the ups and downs of dating and how to navigate through it. Today, my guest is Joseph. Is it Lou? I should have practiced first.
It is Joseph Liu. Yes,
Oh, I
that'll
guess
work.
right.
That'll work.
So Joseph is an expert in personal branding, career change, self-employment, and networking topics. Joseph is dedicated to helping people relaunch their careers to pursue more meaningful work. He's a career change consultant, professional speaker, and the host of the Career Relaunch podcast with listeners from 170 plus countries. Featured as a top business podcast in Forbes, Glassdoor, and Business Insider. With 10 years of corporate branding experience at Fortune 500 companies like Clorox and General Mills. He's coached thousands of professionals from 60 plus countries to relaunch their careers using principles of branding and marketing. Joseph, thank you so much for being on People on Dating. How are you?
I'm doing all right, William. Thanks so much for inviting me to be on your show, and I'm looking forward to talking about this topic. It's a little bit outside of the typical focus of my work, but I think it's related to some of the networking topics that I do cover.
Oh no, one thing before we get into your career, I definitely agree. What people might say, well, what does networking and building relationships have to do with dating? It has a lot to do with dating, in my opinion. I've
Hmm.
met a couple of women that I dated through networking events. It's
Okay,
already a
yeah,
like-minded uh, a setting, and you already got at least that one thing in common. So before
yeah.
we go further, so Joseph, tell a little about yourself. What was that career aha moment? What was that journey like for you?
Okay, well, so my career kind of splits into three chapters. So first, I originally thought that I was going to become a doctor, and I
Oh,
studied pre-medical sciences at Northwestern University, eventually went to the Georgetown School of Medicine, but dropped out after I realized that it wasn't for me. So that was my first chapter. And then I moved from there into brand marketing. So I marketed, as you mentioned, consumer packaged goods products both in the US and the UK. Eventually, that was chapter two, and eventually left the corporate world about 12 years ago. And am now focused on the work that I do right now, which is ultimately about trying to help people find more meaningful work. And
mhm.
so I'm a speaker, a workshop webinar host. I do some writing for publications, including Forbes. And I also host my own podcast called Career Relaunch, and I feature people who have made major career changes and relationship management, networking, maintaining your contacts, expanding your network. These are all topics that come up in the context of navigating career transitions.
Yeah, and think about it, though. Like I said, and today's topic is going building strong relationships and friendships. And I
Mhm.
definitely want to get into the friendship first. Let's tackle that. Um, in your work and your study and in in your day-to-day life, um are you finding friendships are harder to build because maybe things are not people don't have things in common, or I sometimes I look at friendships and I wonder if everybody's aligned, if that makes sense, because some
Yeah.
people, when I try to do some career changes, people will say, oh, if I was you, I wouldn't do that. Oh, why are you going to do that? And it's like
Yeah.
they never did that themselves. So I'm like, well,
Right.
so what kind of friend is this if they're not giving me
Yep.
constructive criticism, but it's like just criticism, if my question made
Yep.
any sense at all.
Yeah, so your friendship group, the people you keep around you, that has a direct influence on the trajectory of
Mhm.
your career. There's a great quote from a guy named Jim Rohn, and he said,
Oh,
"You're the
I love
average of the
Jim
five
Rohn.
people." Yeah, he said, "You're a great business leader, great thought leader,"
Yeah.
and he said, "You're the average of the five people you spend the most time with." So if you
Mm.
think about just what you're talking about, William, which is who am I surrounding myself with, and are these people supporting my ambitions, or are they people who are constantly questioning me? Are these people individuals who have lives and careers that look like the kind of life and career that I want to have? And so I do think that it is important to think about who you have as a friend, who you keep as a friend, who still makes sense to have as a friend, because our lives will
Yeah.
evolve over time. And to get to the other point that you had raised in your question, I do think that, and this is somewhat anecdotal, I'm in my
Mm.
mid 40s. I am married with one young child at home. I do find that at this stage in my life personally, it has been harder to make friends. And I
Mm.
work primarily with people who are sort of mid career, maybe senior, seasoned career professionals. And a lot of them have recently been coming up to me, talking to me about this topic of friendship. It comes up in the networking seminars. It comes up in the context of friendships at work. Who is a
Yeah.
real friend? Who's a close friend? And it's just, I think, because of us being more virtually connected to one another, social media, people thinking that virtual communications can stand in the place of actual face-to-face communications, and just I think our increased fragmented just attention spans these days. It
Yeah.
kind of prevents and kind of detracts from the ability to form meaningful relationships.
I definitely agree. I think with social media, everything is through text now. A lot of people don't have straight conversations anymore
Yep.
compared to like 10, 15 years ago. Everything is just text now. How prevalent is texting now with friendships or to start a friendship or even to start even like networking events? It's an email. I get that. That's fine. An email. Hey, this is going to be on this day at this time at this place. But when you start meeting people or you're hanging out with people, um, it seems like nobody wants to pick up the phone that much anymore. It's
I
everything is
know.
through text. Even people have conversations, and I'm like, I don't want to have a conversation through text. Even if
I
it's a
know.
5 minute
Yeah.
phone call, let me do that. I don't want to text for 5 minutes. Again,
Yeah.
are you seeing that more and more? Like people just the verbal communication is losing its art.
Yeah, it's just not there as much as it used to be. Again, I've got mostly anecdotal information on this, but one of the questions I ask in my networking workshops is how do you reach out to people? How do you reconnect with people who are already in your network?
Yeah.
And pretty much the number one and number two responses are typically LinkedIn messaging and
Mm.
then email, followed pretty closely these days by regular messaging apps like WhatsApp or Signal or iMessage. And my feeling around this, William, and I've got quite a strong opinion on this, is that you're never going to form a great relationship over text messaging. Like
No, I
no
agree.
no deep meaningful connection is going to be formed that way. I think text messaging is understood as the modern day medium for initial outreach and initial contact, and even maintaining contact with people who are your friends. I do that myself. But these days, I'm really trying to shift away from relying solely on text messaging. And I'm thinking of text messaging these days as the on-ramp to hopefully face-to-face in-person communications. Because you're just missing out, especially in the context of friendship, you're missing out on a lot of the nonverbal cues, the nonverbal communication, body language. You don't get any of that in tone of voice. You don't get any of that in text messaging. So I always encourage people. I know it takes more effort, but if you really want to get to know somebody, you'll have to spend some time with them face to face.
No, I agree. I remember Joseph. I met this woman a couple of years ago at it was like a music. I won't say a festival, but let's say for lack of a better phrase or word, a music jam. I
Okay.
knew some of the DJs. Anyway, so I met this woman. We started talking and all that, and then towards the end of the conversation, she says, "Hey, what's your Facebook profile?" And I'm like, "So that's what we're doing now? No more."
It's like the inverse of,
Yeah, and
right.
no more phone number. It's Facebook now. So, and
Yeah.
I started noticing that too through some of my friends that are,
Yeah.
looking to date or, everything is, let me get to Instagram or let me get to Facebook.
Yeah.
Phone number again. It seems like phone numbers are becoming a thing of the past. Everything is now through sharing of the profiles of your
Yep.
Instagram or your Facebook
Yeah.
pages. That's crazy. I am like, again, building meaningful friendships or relationships through I guess people now look at your pictures and they determine, oh yeah, well, whatever. It's crazy. How about the
Yeah.
character? How about getting to know the voice of someone?
Yeah.
I'm telling you, Joseph, it's a different world out there.
It is. And like I don't want us to kind of date ourselves too much here, but like I do think that there is something to be said for face-to-face communication or even a phone call, hearing the person's voice. And I actually recently
Right.
had a friend of mine challenge me on this. And one of the things she told me was I was kind of complaining to her about a friend of mine from college, and I never really hear from the guy. And
Yeah.
I sometimes will text message him and he won't text message me back. And now part of that is just because I actually like him because of this. He's not really on his phone that much. He's not on
Mm.
Facebook. He's not on Instagram. He's not on any of those social media networks. And she told me, she said, well, why don't you just pick up the phone and call the guy? And I actually thought,
Mm.
I don't know why I don't do that anymore. And now, even with her, like she's not a big text messenger either. I'll just pick up the phone and call her, or I'll pick up the phone and call him and see if I can catch him. And I
Right.
do find that that tends to get you further faster with people. But for whatever reason, people these days feel the need to first text, then, I don't know, send a message via a social media platform, and then maybe eventually text again, and then eventually maybe you'll maybe think about meeting up. So yeah, it's gotten a lot
Uh,
more complicated.
yes, that I agree there. And another thing, Joseph, that you hit on, it seems like, okay, you do text. Um, and with texting, I think it's so impersonal because when you talk to someone on the phone, you can hear whether they're happy, they're sad, they're pissed off, whatever. You could hear their emotions compared to text, unless they, say certain words that then you read it on the text. But I'm more of a person that I love to talk to people. So Joseph, I wanted to talk about networking, right?
Hmm.
Now, like I said, for me, I've met a couple of women through that I dated through networking events. Can you talk more about networking, like how people can meet? Obviously, it's a like-minded event, but I've
Yep.
seen also where some people are really, they might come with a friend or two, and they just in a corner somewhere with a friend or two.
Yeah.
Uh, they're not mingling, if I make sense.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Of
what would be
course.
a couple of steps if you could like recommend to network properly?
Okay, so number one, just getting back to your point that you just made, William, about going with a friend. I know it can feel good
Yeah.
to bring a wingman with you or to bring your best friend with you. I know it's more comforting. However, I generally recommend that people go to events by themselves. And the reason
Right.
why I say that is because it will force you to not lean on your friends during that time. It will force you to put yourself out there and meet other people. So I actually think whether you're going to a social event for personal reasons because you want to meet somebody romantically or you want to date, or if you're going to a professional event where you're trying to connect with professional contacts, you will meet more people if you don't bring anybody with you. So I would, first of all, I would
Right.
go by yourself to conferences or whatever, name the venue. The second thing is I would not try to do too much too soon with people.
Mhm.
Sometimes I guess in the context of dating, this would be like going on a first date and asking to get married. In a business
Right.
context, it might be
Right.
yeah.
Right.
It's like this is too much too soon. You're putting too much pressure on people. In a business
Yeah.
context, you meet somebody for the first time and you ask them how to get a job at their company. It's just you
Mm.
put too much pressure on them. So I would pace yourself. I would think about the first interaction you have as with somebody being distinct from every other following interaction. So I actually think that that first interaction is just to establish an initial rapport. And if I think about just my own personal experiences with meeting new close friends in my
Right.
adult life, it takes time. Like I might meet somebody at a party, this friend I'm talking about, I met her at a party, it was like 3 years ago. A couple initial messages, maybe you meet that, I met that person, I met her like, I don't know, a few months later, once, a few months later after that, once. It takes a while. I mean, it's taken years for us to actually, I think, form a closer friendship. And so I do think that these things take time and they take patience. So one of the best times you can meet somebody is when you're not desperate to meet somebody. And I know that that can
Ah.
feel very counterintuitive, but that is the best time to form relationships, is when you are not desperately in need of that relationship.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think if you show your desperateness, if for a
Yeah.
lack of a better word, but uh, the other person will see it,
Yeah, they'll sniff it out.
and
Yeah.
yeah, they'll sniff it out. And also, like and it comes to dating is the same way. Um, so let's say you do want to form, you meet someone, you want to form maybe a business partnership or obviously a personal relationship. Is there's I guess it's all depends on the timing and the connection with the person, right? If there's chemistry or whatever, but also you got to build trust.
Yep.
How long is that average trust to build? I mean, because you don't know this person, and then I've been in networking events that people want to partner with you the first day they meet you, and I'm like, I don't know this person, so how do
Yeah,
I,
it's not happening.
Yeah, it's not happening. I just met you. How do you build that
Yep.
rapport? Just conversations, things in common. I guess the obvious things, right, Joseph?
Yeah, it takes time. This is one of those things, William, that I feel people oftentimes when people talk to me in my workshops, whether they're networking workshops or kind of offline conversations afterwards, they're looking for like kind of quick shortcuts to accelerate the process of forming a relationship. To give you a specific
Mm,
example, hey, there's somebody at this company who I don't know very well, but I'm interested in working for their company. How do I quickly like build a relationship with that person and maybe convert
mm,
that into a conversation where they can tell me how to get a job at their company? And it generally just doesn't work like that. Pulling
right.
together a network, there's a guy named Alan Collins, and he wrote a great. It's kind of an old book, but it's the unwritten HR rules. And he says pulling a good network together takes effort, sincerity, and time.
Mm,
So there's no way to shortcut it. Like you said, it takes a while to get to know somebody. Then you got to decide if you like that person. If you like that person, you spend more time with them, and over time you'll develop that trust. And one of the things that I think a person can do that's quite concrete to build trust with somebody is to offer something that's valuable to them. Do something that
mm,
helps them. Send them an article that you think is interesting. Send them a podcast episode that you think relates to one of the challenges that they've been struggling with in their life. Introduce them to somebody else in your network who you think could help them based on what you guys chatted about. And I feel like if you think about just networking and relationship formation as a give and take, I would focus on the giving at first and like really like give unconditionally and without
mm,
expectation of anything in return. And if you do that, you will start to slowly build trust with people. I mean, the last thing, if you want to talk about a trust killer,
right.
if you want to quickly kill trust, you can offer something to somebody and then expect something in return right away. And then they will feel like you only did that so you could get something back from them. Or go up to somebody
Wow.
who's become a cold contact of yours who you've fallen out of touch with, suddenly get back in touch with them, and it's only because you want something from them. That's a trust killer.
So how do you
So,
prevent that though, Joseph? You know, let's say if I want to send an article to you on, podcasting in the evening. I'm just and
yes,
but again, I'm just throwing that out.
we are doing
Um,
that. Yeah.
right, exactly. It is in the so how do I'm sending you an article, but I'm not really expecting anything in return. But
Yep.
do you feel as receiving this article from me that then do you feel that you have an obligation to send something back to me? Is I that part I'm a little confused. If you can help me out on that one,
Yep.
with because I think
Yeah.
that's a killer. I agree.
Yeah. I think some people would feel that. Like from a personal standpoint,
Yeah.
if somebody sent me something of value, I would feel probably a bit of internal pressure to try to do something for them in return. Although I have met plenty of people who just enjoy helping other people. And
Right.
like I do think there are people out there who would feel a pressure to return the favor. I can tell you that there's plenty of people I have made introductions for who I've sent useful information to. They don't get back to me with value added stuff necessarily. And it doesn't bother me because I'm doing it because I'm genuinely trying to help them. I
Right.
don't think it actually bothers them either that much
Okay.
because otherwise if it did they probably would return the favor. Um, but I think if you're genuinely giving to help somebody, and if somebody can feel that from you, and they will sense that you are not expecting anything in return, and
Okay.
they will not expect this sort of mutual exchange every time. But that's a very personal. There's a lot of stuff behind that. I mean, there's some cultural influences
Yeah.
there also. I'm Asian American. I think sometimes as an Asian, I feel kind of indebted to people who give things to me.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Me too. I like to return the favor. I
yeah, me
would.
too.
That's
Me
yeah.
too.
Because I'm like,
Yeah.
well, they went out of the way. They got this article and all that. So let me try to send something. If not the same day, maybe a week or two later. But I want to
Yeah.
definitely send something. I kind of agree with you. First of all, Joseph, I want to thank you so much for being on People on Dating. To me, this was really good because I haven't really talked about this much about networking and relationships. Before I let you go, anything else you want to promote? Talk about more about your podcast, more about your business, whatever you want. Your next TEDx
Well,
talk, your next Oprah visit.
well, I'll mention two things. And one of them, well, first of all, I welcome people checking out my podcast. It's called Career Relaunch, And I feature people who have made big career changes. So yeah, you're
Yeah.
welcome to definitely check that out. But I suppose since we are talking about friendship, I would would love to just leave people with a challenge and a push to make sure you're tending to your relationships in your life
Mm.
and to prioritize that. I think a lot of times these days we get so busy and we forget about our friends out there.
Yeah.
And it really is important to just remind people that you're thinking of them. And I actually did a friendship survey just last month. I had like about 70 people respond, mostly in their 30s to 50s. And
Mm.
the number one thing that people said that they wished their friends did more of was just to check in more often. That's it.
Mm.
Just a simple check-in. Like just to check in, see how I'm doing. And so if you're out there and you're listening to this, if there's a friend you've kind of fallen out of touch with or you haven't been in touch with in a while, I would really encourage you just drop them a message. You could text message them, or you could even pick up the phone and just give them a call. These days, I like sending people video messages, which is a little bit more personal than a text message. But
Yeah.
to take the effort to reconnect with the people in your life because it's worth that effort.
Yeah, 100%. I love that. And it's funny, I was going to ask you, after what would be your last word on networking, but you said it. That's perfect. And if somebody want to get in contact with you, what's the best way?
Well, feel free to go to my website. It's at josephliu.co. And there you can check out my blog. I write about career change topics and personal branding topics, networking topics. And that's probably the best way to follow me and get in touch.
All right, definitely. I'll put that on the show notes. Well, first of all, Joseph, thank you so much for being on People on Dating. I really, really appreciate it.
Okay, thanks so much, William.